I start with an apology. Andy Cook, our Chief Exec, was hoping to be here to say hello, but he is in fact sitting outside Signals in Berkshire somewhere. So we'll turn up at some point. But instead you've got me, I'm Ed Davis, I'm the Director of Policy. An enormous welcome to you here. It's great to see a really mixed crowd of people from all kinds of different organisations actually, which is fantastic. Particularly I think because the CSJ is built on the idea that we know nothing, we learn from other people. We always think there is something good going on out there, and our job is to learn from it and to see what we can do with that, how to multiply it. So it's great to see a really good mix of people up here today. Good range of you here, a full house when it gets hot. I'll open the windows, as it does in here. And the other thing that is really good about this is we tend to work in silos in government and the CSJ, and this is about both education and work. And education and work are two of us, we refer to pathways to poverty. If you don't have the education you need, if you don't have a job, you're going to be in trouble. And this is about bringing the two together and thinking a bit about the skills we need for life. And so no one better to do that than the Right Honourable Robert Halfon. It's great to have you here this morning. Made a career out of working in this area, first as Minister, now as Chair of the Education Select Committee. And so I will be quiet as I have nothing more useful to say, and I will immediately hand over to you. Thank you.
These for free parking outside. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm very proud to be here today. I'm here for two reasons: social justice and better skills. Both have been my compass since I entered politics, and I can't think of better proponents of these goals than the three organisations that have organised this event. The CSJ is a tireless advocate for our very poorest citizens. It brings a voice to those who have none, hope to those who are in our peripheral vision, and social justice to the heart of British politics. The Open University is a bastion of social justice too. It's an outstanding institution of learning that provides opportunities to those who may have otherwise fallen by the wayside. The Learning and Work Institute is an earnest and long-standing devotee to learning in work progression and personal development. Now, we've made major progress on education, but I believe that we can build a brighter future by addressing our skills problem. There is no doubt that education's improved. We've now got a system that encourages schools to innovate and raise their game. Since 2019, 1.9 million more pupils are in good or outstanding schools. We're stripping out many qualifications that hold no real currency with employers. And we've got some of the finest universities in the world. We can go further, but only if we address our skills problems. Over a third of workers in England do not hold suitable qualifications for the jobs they do. Around 9 million of all working age adults in England have low basic skills. Employers are crying out for skills in a whole range of different areas, from electricity, gas, water, construction, transport and manufacturing. 28% of jobs taken by 16 to 24-year-olds could be at risk of automation by the 2030s. By contrast, just 5% of young people are in employment in STEM areas. They have a lower risk of automation by almost 20% compared to retail or wholesale jobs. An enormous wave of lost opportunity is about to come crashing down on the next generation of employees, and staggeringly, a third of England's 16 to 19-year-olds have low basic skills. And that's why I said when I was a minister, and I say it again today, that we have a nightmare on Skills Street in our country. But our skills problem is a social justice issue too. Whilst the lack of skills in society touch us all. It is our most disadvantaged individuals who pay the highest price. They have the most to gain from skilling their way out of deprivation, but are the least likely to do so. Now, this is plain to see across our schools, where millions of disadvantaged children are on a collision course with failure. Just 33% on free school meals get 5 good GCSEs, compared to 61% of their better off peers. Without a solid nucleus of skills, it's hard to thrive in the job market. Instead, the most likely outcome for these individuals is a grim concoction of wage stagnation, fading hope, and inertia. And PwC shows that we're behind other OECD countries in terms of lack of social mobility, and in terms of regional disparity in education and employment, and in terms of vocational and technical opportunities. So to spark a skills revolution, we need to first transform the way we view education. Now, it's customary to talk about the parity of esteem between technical and academic education. I've come to realise how wrong this is. Because pursuing parity of esteem, in quotes, reinforces the split that exists between them. It implies a division between the two routes, when in fact they should be seen as intertwined, two parts of the same system of self-improvement, and both equally well supported. Education should be a continuum of learning, and this means one train line with a series of academic and technical stops. The ability to jump back on and travel to other stations to build credit and reskill or upskill, and all without the fuss within a seamless infrastructural opportunity. Every part of that train journey should be to build up credits to the next stage. So how do we do this? Well, first, let's look at post-16 technical education. The government is starting to create more connectivity between academic and technical education through its post-16 skills plan. The plan will produce a much smaller number of qualifications, T-levels in 15 different clusters of skills. These qualifications will have the standard currency that the thousands of existing qualifications currently lack, and pupils will be able to move between technical and academic routes through bridging provisions. But we've got to do a lot more. We need to make sure that everybody gets the basics right. Around 9 million of all working age adults in England have low basic skills, and a third of 16 to 19-year-olds have low basic skills. Literacy and numeracy are the bedrock of academic and vocational success. Without them, it's hard to build a skill set that will unlock higher value jobs. We faced a huge amount of confused progression. 125,000 young people in each year study for qualifications at the same or lower level that they've actually already achieved. Further education can be a vital player in helping the current and next generation build the basic skills they need. However, rather than swallow valuable resources on retakes for those who fail English and maths, with failure rates of over 2/3 in each case, we should be offering these individuals functional skills, quality functional skills courses to improve their basic literacy and numeracy. I have never understood why it has been the burden of further education to solve the problems of pupils who've left schools who did not get their maths or English GCSE. Now, apprenticeships can bring excellent return. 90% of apprentices go on to a job or further education. But all apprenticeships must deliver a top-rate return. 48% of apprentices are not in good or outstanding provision. The government must urgently review the sector to ensure we are providing quality as well as quantity. And we need to be smarter about how we use the new apprenticeship levy. We could, for example, introduce a taper, allowing employers to pay smaller contributions if they develop apprenticeships for disadvantaged pupils and if they address skills shortages. And once we're clear about what works best, We could then make a powerful case for actually expanding the apprenticeship levy. We need more balance in our higher level offering so that there are pathways into intermediate and higher technical education. We've become obsessed with full academic degrees in this country. We've talked about universities when it should have been about skills. And we're creating a higher education system that overwhelmingly favours academic degrees, while intermediate and higher technical offerings are comparatively tiny. As the Vice-Chancellor of Nottingham Trent has said, social mobility is more about entry to the world of work than it is to the world of study. Great quotation. The labour market does not need an ever-growing supply of academic degrees, and between a fifth and a third of our graduates take non-graduate jobs. The graduate premium varies wildly according to subject and institution, and for many the returns are paltry. There's a strong need for intermediate skills. There are skill shortages in several sectors, and there are millions of people who want to get on in life, preferably without the lead weight of a 50,000 plus loan dragging from their feet. If we're going to continue to lavishly furnish universities with taxpayers' money, we need to rethink about how universities can specialise in these areas. Existing universities that do not provide a good return on academic courses reinvent themselves as centres of technical excellence, and further education colleges, which are ideally placed to offer flexible and local options for those who need this, could be better supported and incentivised to deliver intermediate and higher technical courses. Either way, we must urgently redirect some of this funding towards courses and degrees that have a technical focus. We can be creative about blending technical and academic education, and degree apprenticeships are a remarkable example of a vehicle that just does that. They should be the crown jewel in a revamped technical offering. Students earn as they learn. They don't incur mountains of debt. They get good quality jobs at the end. They also help meet our skills deficit, so they benefit society too. I want to see more universities offering these apprenticeships. There are just 11,600 at the moment, and I hope that one day half of all university students will be doing degree apprenticeships. And the government must incentivise their growth. And one way to do this would be to ring-fence some of the enormous public subsidy that still goes to universities, so that universities can only draw down on this protected funding stream if they offer degree apprenticeships. And we must use the 860 million outreach budget more effectively. There has barely been any growth in state school students who start full-time undergraduate courses, just 0.1% more in 2016 compared to the previous year. In 9 of the 24 Russell Group universities, the proportion of state school pupils actually declined. Why not use these funds to really help social disadvantage and use them to promote degree apprenticeships? But this isn't just an issue of supply. Few families are even aware of apprenticeships, let alone degree apprenticeships, especially from disadvantaged families where the returns, as I say, could be most profound. Both the existence of apprenticeships and the value they bring must be hardwired into careers advice. Academic study at universities should be just as accessible, regardless of background. For individuals to make informed choices about academic courses, we've got to be transparent about the return that they will bring. The way we recognise universities is completely wrong. We place far too much emphasis on research excellence and not enough on teaching quality and employability. Universities are an integral part of the machinery that feeds into the jobs market. It's reasonable to hold them accountable for the extent to which they prepare students for the world of work. Now, in part, the problem is nestled away in the system of incentives we have created for our universities. They're rewarded disproportionately for the amount of research they do, rather than the teaching they offer or the employability skills they confer. Membership of the Russell Group is widely seen as a proxy for elite performance, and the branding power this brings is extraordinary. Now, while some Russell Group universities deserve their recognition as elite institutions, others appear to trade well on their brands, and yet their less reputable counterparts remain unrecognised. Out of the 59 higher education providers that received the gold standard in the government's Teaching Excellence Framework, 51 were not in the Russell Group. Portsmouth University came top of the Economist's value-added university rankings, which compares graduate wages with what they would have been expected to earn if they hadn't gone to that university. Aston University came second in the same rankings, and both received gold in the Teaching Excellence Framework. These universities deserve all the prestige we can muster. They are powerful engines for social mobility and put rocket boosters on the life chances of those who may otherwise have stagnated. We always talk about elite universities, and an elite university to me is a university that has a high proportion of students from social disadvantaged backgrounds, who does a lot of work on work experience traineeships and apprenticeships, and has high destination data, successful destination data for all the students, and thus including that those who have come from disadvantaged backgrounds get the same kind of jobs as those from the more wealthier ones. And there are some universities up and down our country that do this, and yet they are not recognised as elite universities. There is something deeply wrong with the way we measure success in our country. To build a continuum of learning, we must also make it easy for people to learn flexibly throughout their lives. For those who are not able to build high-value skills the first time round, or whose skills have been wiped out by a fast-changing labour market, it must be that our system offers a way back. Open University's model clearly demonstrates flexible learning as a powerful vehicle for social justice. Its students are not required to have completed A-levels or equivalent qualifications, so prior achievement is not a hindrance to personal development. It's able to reach some of the hardest niches within our system, and is the primary provider of higher education in UK prisons and secure units. Its flexible online learning model makes higher education possible for those who live in areas where there is not even a university. That's why I'm doing this today with Open University, not just because they agreed to do a joint event with me, because I think it is an extraordinary organisation in terms of getting people up that ladder, of that educational ladder of opportunity, especially from disadvantaged backgrounds. So the mere idea of taking one penny away from the flexible earn and learn sector, while continuing to prop up mediocrity in some of the traditional sector, is scandalous. Flexibility is a vital part of continuing learning. We have to protect this sector, and we can start by ring-fencing the part-time premium element of the Higher Education Funding Council's widening participation funding allocation, a tongue twister if ever there was one. It's also vital that we create clear routes from further education to higher education, and these could be supported through next step loans for individual higher education modules. So good education is the high-speed train that propels social justice. It needs a proper line, a series of stops that lead to thriving, dynamic places of opportunity. No deserted platforms, no decaying stations. And for that to happen, we must craft a more fluid and balanced system. And we've got to build excellence all along the way. I invite you all to join me in driving this vital agenda forward. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is James Scales. I head up the Education Policy Unit here at the CSJ. I'll be your chair today. I'd like to thank the Right Honourable Robert Halfon for outlining some of the major skills challenges that we face today. It seems that there are a clear number of structural and attitudinal factors that blunt skills development in this country, and particularly damaging for the most disadvantaged members of our society. Robert has covered a broad terrain in his speech, and that I think will serve as a very useful platform for further discussion. And we have an equally broad range of expertise on the panel today who are going to take this discussion forward. So first of all, we have Amy King. So she'll provide a student's perspective. She's a postgraduate chemist at the Open University studying part-time. She's also the founder of GlamSci, an outreach charity that encourages young people and adult learners to take up sciences. Then we have Stephen Evans, the Chief Executive of the Learning and Work Institute, who has a rich blend of policy expertise. He's had prior positions at Working Links, London Development Agency, the Social Market Foundation, and Her Majesty's Treasury. We also have Peter Horrocks, CBE. He is the Vice Chancellor of the Open University. It gives us a university perspective. He was also prior Director of the BBC World Service Group. And last of all, we've got Catherine Roberts, who provides an employer's perspective on apprenticeships. She leads KPMG UK's programme on apprenticeships. So thank you all for being here today. I'm going to ask each of the panellists to come up here to take 5 minutes to talk today. You're more than welcome to either respond directly to Robert's speech or to add other issues that you would like to raise. And then after that, I will open up to the floor. So first of all, Amy, if you'd like to take the floor.
Right, good morning everybody. So as a learner and as an educator in GlamSci, I know the power that education has to change not only a person's life, but also their standing within society. To me, this might seem like an outdated concept in 2018. Social standing and social justice, positively Victorian in a way, however the ideas of social justice are not. We live in a time where poverty and bias occur on a daily basis. One only has to look within the classroom to see a class divide, so to speak. Those children who have home tutors and coaching to achieve what they need in class, to those that live on daily benefits to survive. The need for social justice is as great now as the original ideas that created it, to allow those from any backgrounds to have the same access to wealth, opportunities and privileges that those from well-off backgrounds already have access to. And the only real way to receive social justice is through the access of a good education. However, even though now the access of education can be restricted to certain groups of people, particularly for adult learners, many learners cannot access traditional education, lack knowledge of unconventional routes into education, such as apprenticeships and distance learning, or even lack the confidence for change. Myself, I come from a background where I live with a daily incurable hereditary disease called EDS, and I've seen how the right to education for disabled people can become restricted. When I was a young child, I lost a lot of schooling whilst being in hospital, but I still kept my love of learning and fought to continue my education. During that time, education was the one thing that I could control, and it gave me an anchor to keep me afloat. It was literally a lifeline. Yet due to my illness, my teachers told me that I'd never achieve anything with my life, that no one would hire a cripple, I was wasting the school's time and resources, and that I should leave, apply for benefits, because that was all that I was fit for. I was very badly bullied at school by both the teachers and the students, which ended up making me consider taking my own life at the age of 17. But through education and the support of my family, I managed to overcome the situation and turn a negative into a positive. I was lucky, and through my experiences, I set up my own charity GlamSci with my mother, Nikki King, encouraging students from poorer, socio-economic backgrounds, disabled students, young women, those with gang culture, and non-English speaking refugees come to the UK for the first time to get hands-on with science and STEM subjects and support diversity in any way we can. It was through GlamSci and my work in education that I also came to realise that access to education is not the only barrier to social justice, but that we also suffer from an extreme skills vacuum. As Rob was saying earlier on, as time progresses, our workplaces are becoming more and more reliant on technological advancement, such as AI, and robotic workers. It's completely changing the face of our workplace compared to 20 to 30 years ago. And we haven't seen such a change in our workplace since the Industrial Revolution of the 19th century. And as time goes on, our need for technology will increase, and we need to be able to step up and meet this demand and supply more skilled scientists and engineers. And being a scientist myself, there's no bias there. At the moment, we're in a skills vacuum. We're teaching young people outdated skills for jobs that may not exist in 20, 30 years' time, and preparing them for skills for a workforce that existed decades ago. Add to this, we're losing a large amount of talent through gender, race and ability bias, and it becomes clear that a skill revolution is needed. We are on the cusp of an educational revolution where the power of knowledge and education is at the end of our fingertips in our smartphones and tablets. And it's clear as learners that we need to accept this fact and become more flexible with our own learning, moving away from more traditional routes of learning into flipped, distance and independent studies as more and more providers provide this. I myself have also followed this route, moving away from a red brick university to follow the Open University, which has been a fantastic route into education and has allowed me to thrive and build a business that I never thought I'd ever be able to achieve before, and finally be able to hire myself a cripple into education. I can see myself working with them for quite a long time, and hopefully soon in a PhD role. No plug there. I'd like to finish by saying that as an adult learner, being an adult learner in any capacity isn't easy. You're asking someone who's lived a day in mediocrity, a life where they're told that they'll never achieve, they are not smart enough, and they aren't good enough that they are. And that realisation is very powerful, that these learners are powerful people. It takes power to write an essay whilst being chronically ill in bed. It takes power to take an exam whilst balancing 4 children and caring for a sick loved one. It takes power to study a course in a whole completely different language. And then you'll go through moments where you feel like your power is at its lowest, and you're stuck, bogged down, and feel like you can't continue. You will somehow be able to get back up from that low point, get back up off the floor, and stand the ground like the scholar that you are. Because you are not learning for you. You are learning to show your children that you can do it, that they can do anything they set their minds to. You are learning to show that teacher at school who told you you were never smart enough to study that course that you're the next Albert Einstein and Stephen Hawking rolled into one. You're doing it to make your family proud whether they're with you or not. You see, when you teach an adult learner, you aren't just teaching one person, you're teaching their children and their children's children for the rest of their generations. You're giving the person the tools to build themselves a better chance, a better life, a better chance of being a person they always wanted to be. It's not an education you're giving them their self-worth, their identity and their dignity. You're giving them the power to change, and I think that is the best justice of it all. Thank you very much.
So I've got the tough act of following Amy. I'm really pleased to be here this morning. Really pleased that we have Amy here. And Amy, a couple of years ago, I think, won a Festival of Learning award, which is something we've been doing for the last 25 years, and it's all about celebrating the best in adult learning and inspiring more adults into learning. And I don't think there could be perhaps a more inspirational story that deserves to be celebrated than Amy's. I'm also really pleased that we're doing this event in partnership with the Centre for Social Justice and the Open University, and really pleased that Rob's here to give that keynote address. Rob's been a long-standing friend of the Learning and Work Institute and of further education and learning more broadly. And I think I'd perhaps start where Rob started, which is around the case for action, which I suspect most people in this room will see and agree with straight away, and the importance of skills and learning to both our economy and to social justice. We live in a changing world. We've talked about automation, we've talked about the advance of technology. We know we need to forge a new path to prosperity as we leave the European Union and as the global economy more broadly changes. And skills are really central to doing that. And this is one of those areas. There's always areas in public policy where there are trade-offs, but this is one of those areas where economic prosperity and social justice go hand in hand. There was a paper a couple of months ago in the US that looked at math students in the US and looked at their propensity to file patents when they were adults. And those from poorer backgrounds who were better achieving were no more likely to file patents when they were adults than those who were worse achieving but from better off backgrounds. And the paper was titled Lost Einstein. So Amy, we hadn't rehearsed this beforehand, but handily we have the same line there. So how many Einsteins, Berners-Lees, Dysons and whoever have we lost out on as a country purely because of social background? We can do better than that, and we have to do better than that. And I just wanted to reflect just on a couple of specific challenges. And when the Prime Minister took office on the steps of Downing Street, she talked about tackling burning injustice. And if you want to see a burning injustice, look at those 9 million adults that Rob talked about who lack functional literacy and numeracy. These are skills as basic as understanding the dosage instructions on an aspirin packet. They're essential to work and life in the 21st century. And yet the number of adults improving those skills has fallen by 25% in the last 5 years. We need a bigger ambition than that. And if you want to see a burning injustice, look at the fact that if you're from a black or Asian or minority ethnic background, your application for an apprenticeship is half as likely to succeed than if you're from a white background. And to go back to Amy, if you're there are 17,500 engineering apprentices across England. Of those, 600 are women. And if we're going to succeed, if we're going to build that STEM skills base, we need to really utilise the talents of all of our people and open doors of opportunity to everybody, regardless of their background. So I think we're awash with burning injustices. The question really is, what can we do about it? And I could talk for hours about this. You'll be relieved to know I'm not going to, particularly because we've reached standing room only in this room, and I think we also have people in the room next door. So I'm not going to talk for hours. I will just pick out 2 things that I think we can do. So the first is to invest as a country and set a higher ambition. So for example, we think there should be an extra £200 million a year invested in adult basic skills so that all adults have the chance to gain those basics by 2030. It doesn't feel overly ambitious that by 2030 all adults should have the chance to improve their literacy and numeracy, but it would involve doubling attainment from where we are now because of those declines that I talked about. So we need to invest talent to a higher ambition. That's one example. But the second is to have much more flexibility in all that we do. Rob used a train analogy for the system that we need to build. I think it's somewhat ironic that our first speaker who's going to introduce us was delayed due to signal issues outside Reading, I think it was, or somewhere. And it feels a bit like that sometimes for the skills system. So what can we do about it? So firstly, higher education shouldn't just be a one-shot chance at a 3-year undergrad degree when you're age 18. We need much more flexibility. We need to open up opportunities to build those higher level skills throughout life. I know Peter will talk about this in a moment, so I don't want to steal his thunder. But I do think when the government does its review of university finance in the coming months, it's really important that whilst that will, I'm sure, look at student tuition fees and the interest rate on those fees and the finances of the universities more broadly, and that's important, though we need to make sure that we're benefiting not just the better off graduates. What's really important is that we open up that flexibility so you can build those skills throughout your life, and degree apprenticeships are a brilliant example of that. So what we can do to encourage more of those, I think, is really important. And then lastly, just around lifelong learning more broadly, I talked about basic skills, I talked about higher education. What about everything else? Here, I think, again, we need much more flexibility. So, for example, if you want to learn some qualifications at intermediate level, then depending on your age, you can take out an advanced learner loan, so university-style loans for intermediate skills. Now, a lot of employers and a lot of individuals value modules of learning as opposed to full qualifications, and sometimes the modules can lead on to full qualifications, but the Advanced Learner Loan system specifically prohibits taking modules. It's there for full qualifications only. How does that help people get into learning? How does that help get the bite-sized skills that people and employers often want? We've also talked about the need to empower people much more effectively. You know, we talk about devolution sometimes. Sometimes the town hall can feel as distant as Whitehall. So how do we put power in the hands of individuals? We've called for a system of personal learning accounts to give people an entitlement to some learning that they can top up themselves, learning from the examples of places like Singapore, where their future skills credit gives, I think, around about 500 Singapore dollars for people to invest in their own learning. So I think we do need that skills revolution. It's essential for economic prosperity and social justice. The two go hand in hand. We've got some really positive steps in the expansion of apprenticeships and in the forthcoming reforms to technical education. We need to take the next steps and be much more ambitious if we're going to set ourselves on the right path for the 21st century. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you to the previous speakers, but I'd particularly like to congratulate Amy on a really inspiring talk. We're hugely proud of you. I hope it won't be too long before I'll be able to congratulate you in an even bigger way and greet you as Dr. Amy King. Sometimes as Vice Chancellor of the Open University with such extraordinary students with amazing stories, I'm tempted just to leave it there, but I think it's important that you should all understand that Amy's story, whilst exceptional, is not atypical. There are so many Open University students who struggle in the way that she's described, who've also faced terrible adversity. The number of students who, when I award them their degrees, tell me as they come across the stage of the education experiences they've had, the demeaning treatment they've had from teachers, and the way in which being able to study later in life and achieve something is the most extraordinary, transformative experience of their life. I'd like to agree with Rob Halfon absolutely about the importance of flexible earning and learning, and particularly the importance of degree apprenticeships. They're not growing as fast as they might do within the Open University. The number of them that we're offering has quadrupled in the last year, and that's a really important sign. That's an important and very useful counter to the overall problems that part-time higher education is suffering. There's been a 60% fall, an extraordinary 60% fall in the part-time higher education market. Imagine if there had been a fall in the number of women who were studying at universities, or BME students. There would be an absolute national uproar about it, but that's what's happened to part-time students, which were a very significant part of the higher education market. But I think there are some opportunities to be able to address it, both with the forthcoming government tertiary review, but also with the new Office for Students, which is getting up and running. And you'll see on your seats, if you haven't already sat on it, a publication from the Open University today, 5 clear things which we're asking the new Office for Students to do, five essentials. And I'll quickly touch on them and relate them to some of the things that we've already heard. First of all, the Office for Students needs to be the office for all students. Everyone throughout their working lives, or indeed their lives, has the potential to be a student. So the focus that there's been primarily on 18-year-old undergraduate 3-year face-to-face entry has to be broadened. And the targets that the Office for Students sets in relation to disability, in relation to age, in relation to the varieties of ways of learning need to be as broad and rich as the students and the potential students that are out there. Secondly, there needs to be a real focus on collaboration. Of course, the OFS is an economic regulator with a requirement to ensure competition. The collaboration duty that was included as an amendment to the original bill is absolutely critical in terms of being able to achieve social justice outcomes. So collaboration, particularly between different levels within tertiary education, especially between FE and HE, and appropriate progression, something which we see happening much more effectively in other parts of the UK, particularly in Scotland and Wales, than it does in England. and also ensuring collaboration between higher education institutions in order to achieve social justice outcomes. It's unlikely to be the case that individual universities, just acting on their own interest in relation to specific student targets, will necessarily deal with all of the different types of disadvantaged students in our society, particularly in relation to geographic cold spots and issues such as that. And we need to build on the work that, as Director of Offer, Les Ebden, has done to ensure that that great progress that there's been on participation for younger students in disadvantaged areas, although that is slightly slowing down, extends across the whole of student populations. Then flexibility, and that absolutely relates to the kind of experience that Amy has, the importance of flexible credit transfer that allows students to move from one institution to the other. And the definition of success for the Office for Students shouldn't be student success within a single institution. It should be the success for the student no matter how many institutions they need to study with. And to support that, credit-based funding. Stephen's already touched on the importance of individual modules, or what Rob referred to as next step loans, the ability to be able to support students through much more flexible funding for shorter forms of learning. But beyond greater flexibility in relation to loans, the Open University believes that it's absolutely clear now in England that since the 2012 fees reforms, there's been a market failure. That 60% fall in the number of part-time students shows that there is a market failure. The government intervenes in relation to subjects, for instance science, which need to be supported, and we believe that the part-time premium that Mr. Halfon referred to should be extended in order to make sure that part-time study is more attractive to students who wish to study with what is after all a more cost-effective alternative, and that can help the employment outcomes and the skills issues that the country faces. And that in doing that, it could actually be a cost-effective way, because part-time learning costs less. It costs less for the public purse because people tend to study from home. They work at the same time as studying part-time, so tax revenues and the paying back of the student loans is earlier. So there's both a social case and a fiscal case for supporting part-time, not just for part-time's sake, but also for the part-time market's sake, but as an alternative for full-time students to offer something which I think will be very attractive, significantly more cost-effective learning. Lastly, how to get more information. I'm sure those of you who are less familiar with some of the aspects of tertiary education will have heard terminology, jargon this morning that may not be entirely familiar to you. Imagine what it's like for adult learners and potential students who don't have the benefit of a school or college careers service to help them to navigate through the plethora of different pathways of learning, technical learning, further education colleges, private providers, foundation degrees, levels 4, 5, what are that, and then degree apprenticeships. There needs to be the equivalent of a UCAS. We have a former chief executive of UCAS here this morning for adult learners, which enables people to be able to get the information. And to steal from the excellent metaphor that Rob used, which is going to be clearly extended through the course of the morning in relation to the railway system, I think we need some digital signboards. We need some digital on-train announcements. We need some smartphones that give the information that enable the trains both to run on time and the users, the students, to be able to get to their destinations much more effectively. Thank you very much indeed.
Made it to the podium without falling over, which is a good start. I'm Catherine Roberts. I am responsible for our apprenticeship programmes at KPMG, and it's my pleasure to be able to share with you an employer's perspective on delivering apprenticeship programmes. At KPMG, we've had a notable investment in delivering opportunities for school leavers outside of our graduate programmes since around 2010. But in 2015, we really started looking at apprenticeships, particularly given we were very much involved with the development of the accountancy and taxation trailblazer standards. And when we did so, we had a really strong sense of purpose, and we knew that we wanted to develop programmes that would widen access to our profession, that would enable our apprentices to progress through our organisation without barriers, and that would enable us to develop talent with the skills and the expertise that we needed now and in the future. We wanted our apprentices to have a diversity of skills, experience and networks that they could take with them through the organisation as they progress, to support them to become the leaders of our organisation in the future. So we developed KPMG 360, which is our 3 or 6 year rotational apprenticeship programme. Our apprentices spend their first 3 years rotating around different areas of our business, whilst working towards a level 4 apprenticeship in accountancy and taxation. At the end of those 3 years, they can choose to specialise within audit, tax or advisory and progress through the level 7 apprenticeship standard, or they can step off the programme and take on a role that's relevant to the skills and the experience they've gained. The benefit of this programme is that our apprentices are developing that diversity of experience whilst determining the direction of their career and the points to which they want to progress. More recently, we've piloted and launched our KPMG 360 digital programme, which is our degree apprenticeship in digital and technology solutions. And we also deliver a level 3 apprenticeship in business administration, which is KPMG 360 business services, supporting students to start a career within our central teams. All of these programmes combined mean that we have apprentices working right across our organisation alongside our graduates and delivering real value. We've invested significantly in the wraparound support for our apprenticeship programme, both pre-joining and once our apprentices arrive. We really focus our recruitment approach on demystifying application processes and supporting individuals to develop the skills and the confidence to successfully apply to our programmes. Through our interviews, we focus on potential through things like scenario-based questioning, and we run a series of online live chats, pre-application workshops to really support individuals to showcase their talent when they come through our processes. Our work experience programme has 70% of participants who meet the access accountancy criteria, which really focuses on measures such as those eligible for free school meals or whether or not their parents went to university. And of our 2017 intake of apprentices, 70% came from less advantaged backgrounds. Looking at our support once our apprentices actually arrive, we really focus on making sure that our programmes have excellent support structures. Day to day, our apprentices have really strong line management. We support them to consider and progress their career through our programme. And we build a really strong sense of community through our programmes as well to make sure that at every point of their career, our apprentices are very, very well supported. And as an organisation, we are very much supportive of any measures that make apprenticeships more attractive and more relevant to employers, particularly those that can create better social mobility through widening access to further qualifications and to employment. And in that sense, we've been part of the development of apprenticeship standards. And we work really closely with our training providers to make sure that our programmes are really fit for purpose and fit for the future of our organisation. We've also been talking to our clients about apprenticeships, and it's been interesting to hear some of the challenges that our clients are facing in this regard. There still does exist some perhaps misconceptions around apprenticeships. Arguably, they're often seen still as vocational rather than as genuine alternatives to a graduate pathway. Equally, some clients are struggling with rigidity of the 20% off-the-job training, and that can often be a challenge. However, what we are seeing is that in KPMG, our apprenticeships genuinely are widening access to our profession, and they are supporting us to develop the skills that we need now and in the future. Thank you.